Yeah, volume's up. It's okay.
Are you going to be hovering in the back?
Yes.
Yeah.
No, I've got it on. I just turned it on. Oh. Okay, what do I need to push?
Or just,
Push that button?
you should be okay now.
All
Yeah,
right.
the top one.
Just and then just do that and then I'm all set. Good.
Right.
Red light on the screen on?
Means it's recorded.
It's recording, okay.
Thanks, Ken. Good afternoon and welcome to the Babcock-Smith House Museum. It's an exciting day for us, and we're going to take a few minutes to give you a little bit of history about what's been going on over the last few years and how we arrived at this date. And then you're going to hear from three other individuals who have a close connection to the museum. They're either involved with the docents or on the Board of Trustees, and they're going to talk about different aspects of what we hope to accomplish with this hole that's already in the ground to our west. So first, just a quick look at the Babcock-Smith House Museum. I often refer to it as the gem at 124 Granite Street. Joshua Babcock built it. Sometimes when we say 1734, it sounds like an old date, but I've always gotten in the habit of saying George Washington was only 2. And that kind of puts it into a little bit different perspective and gives you a sense of how long that mansion house has been here. And Joshua, of course, was a leading citizen within our community. And then, of course, along came Orlando Smith in 1844 and acquired the property, and going, as I like to say, the rest is history, certainly relative to the westerly granite industry. In 1993, we built this building, the Carriage House. It's kind of like our program and education center, and it's a wonderful facility. It was built to take a little bit of the usage pressure off of the mansion house. Everything from meetings or special events were held in the keeping room or in the dining room or the parlor. And with a house that was that old, it started to show its wear. And so the leaders that came before me decided that it would be great to build a carriage house, and it would be a real asset for the property. One of the 4 original trustees, when the trust was established in 1972, really needs no introduction. And Isaac Smith was on the Board of Trustees for 40 years since the trust was established in 1972. Figured 40 years was a nice round number, and so Ike decided to kind of step into semi-retirement a couple of years ago. But Ike and Gertrude Smith have really been the heart and soul of the Babcock-Smith House Museum since the trust was created in 1972. And they're right here, and I want to give them recognition. Those of us that are privileged, to be serving the museum, we're just building on the good work that they did over that 40-year time frame. Also, what I think is a wonderful part about this museum is that if it doesn't get done by a volunteer, it doesn't get done. We have no staff, so we're fortunate to have a wonderful group of trustees, outstanding docents who give lots of time to give tours, to hold special events. And so this carriage house allowed both of those groups to carry on the work established in 1972. Here's an inside shot of where we are today. And many times when we have gatherings such as this, we exceed the fire marshal's recommended vacancy. And so we're glad that we're going to be making it a little bit larger. So back in 2008, the Board of Trustees, with feedback from the docents, said we really could use a little more space. We have an educational collaboration with the local school districts. We just concluded, the docents did a couple of weeks ago, the annual 5th grade tours, 260 5th graders. We're here over 4 different days. And having more space would allow us to expand that collaboration, and who knows whether we could expand it to some other school districts. It's all of the Westerly fifth graders and the fifth graders in both St. Pius and St. Michael's over in Pawcatuck. And we just need, the docents who are a very active group and doing everything from doll teas to luncheons and bazaars and so on. And just, we needed more space. And those were the issues that were driving the situation back in '08. And so we considered an addition to the carriage house. Now this is a more up-to-date version, but basically it does the same thing. We wanted to add on, at this point, everything here would be added to the existing carriage house. Well, that was 2008. Why didn't we do anything in 2008? Well, we had a little bit of a recession going on, and also there were other community campaigns. The hospital had finished and people were still on their payment cycle for that. The library had concluded another successful campaign. The YMCA was involved in a campaign. The adult daycare center was trying to raise money. And so it just seemed like maybe this is not the best time, because we understand, the trustees understand, within any community there's a philanthropic pecking order. If you can only give money, you're going to give to historic preservation or you're going to give it to your hospital. Easy decision. Okay, and so we understood that. And so with all of that going on, we thought it wasn't a good time. Plus, as much as those of us who are close to the museum felt that everyone knows about the Babcock-Smith House Museum, everyone didn't know about the Babcock-Smith House Museum. It was an old house on the top of Granite Street. And they passed it by every day, but they didn't really give much thought of what it was. And until the granite sign, and thanks to Gertrude for adding the word museum at the end of the Babcock-Smith House, people just thought it was an old house, and they didn't know much about it. And so the public awareness wasn't maybe what it is today. And so we put the expansion concept on hold and just said, well, we'll be patient. Then in late October of 2009, Michael Schlossberg approaches the trustees and says, I want people to know that at United Builders Supply we sell granite. And so I'm willing to financially pay the cost for a full page ad in the Westerly Sun once a week for a year. And the Westerly Sun agreed to do a lot of the design work as part of this project, but they asked the museum if we could provide the information about the Westerly granite industry. And this is just one page. I can't remember which. It's near the end. It's probably maybe number 48 or 52 and so on. So the series ran for a full year, and people began to recognize, there's a museum up at 124 Granite Street that has information about the granite industry. Then as a result of that series, a year later in 2011, actually about 3 years ago today, it was our open house in 2011 where we distributed the copies of Built from Stone, and we ordered 800 copies. By the end of the year we sold out. We printed an additional 500, and we've already sold 200 of those 500. So we've sold over 1,000 copies of Built from Stone. Once again, additional publicity. Certainly 3 years ago, a lot of people knew where 124 Granite Street was because they were crowded here to pick up their book and to have it signed by the authors. Then in 2012, Betty Jo Cugini and Susan Sullivan Brocato, in working with close association, the Westerly School Department, they were very supportive of working with us to develop a curriculum guide so that all the young students throughout their education over the years, when they talk about local history, there'd be an element related to the Westerly granite industry. And as much as I love the book, and I do, I feel great about the curriculum guide because going forward, future generations of students will learn a little bit about the impact that this industry had on Westerly. So here we are. Why now? 2013, 2014. Well, the economy has improved. The ongoing community campaigns, when the board met in December of 2012, we said, okay, are we going to do this? Are we going to try to raise $300,000? How's the timing? Things were quiet. We had heard some rumblings about other campaigns that might start up. And so we said, well, we better jump in now, and we did. And I think public awareness of the museum, the granite industry, our colonial heritage, our preservation efforts had been significantly enhanced over that 3 or 4 years since 2008 when we first gave it consideration. So capital campaign in 2013, construction this year, 2014. So as a lead up to that, here was a nice cold day in February, Bartlett tree. We had a tree in the way, and so a Bartlett tree came in and they started chipping away. It's a lovely tree. I felt bad about it. I love trees, but it was in the way. And so we figured we'll plant some other trees going forward. And so they worked at it. And then we got to this point, a few weeks ago where all we had was a stump, and there's the west side of the carriage house. So a little later in the program, I'm going to talk about the actual groundbreaking and how that went. But now, one of the aspects of why we're doing this is, and Susan, you can hit some of the light switches because we're done with the PowerPoint for a few minutes. One of the aspects is our preservation efforts, and the person that is the archivist of the museum, Linda Smith Chafee, is going to talk to us about what this edition means to us from an archival standpoint. Linda?
Thank you, John. 3 years ago today, when we distributed the book, the place was swarming with people, and we had opportunities for people to share with us the treasures of their attic or back corner of their room, where they might have some memorabilia of the granite industry. And they came and they shared photographs. We scanned photographs. They shared anecdotes. We wrote down these anecdotes. They shared with us what they had, and our collection grew. The library, in its latest expansion, came to the conclusion that it was not going to have room for the granite display that they once had in the library. So we negotiated with the Wesley Public Library for a loan, long-term, of the granite exhibit. So our inventory increased again. Brenda and Butch Linton are taking pictures at cemeteries all over the country, and my husband Ken and I are trying to keep up with them, going to different cemeteries all over the country, taking pictures and putting them in binders and organizing the products of the westerly granite industry. So our inventory increased again. And people have given us textiles, which Jackie Brennan is trying to get a handle on and organizing and storing them properly. And that takes even more space for our inventory. Susan Bricado has worked on all the historical stuff from the Sullivan Granite Company and organizing that and making it accessible. So we have a responsibility to keep all this stuff in a orderly, accessible fashion so that it can be used for research. It can be displayed. It can be available to the public in some way or another. If you look in the hole out there, there are like two big rectangles. The rectangle closest to the driveway over there gives you an idea of the size of our vault space. That much of the basement will be fireproof within, 2 hours of flaming fires or something like that. So that anything that we keep in there is going to be climate controlled and fire safe. So we're looking forward to arranging all our granite stuff there, also storing some of our portraits and wall hangings that need vertical storage that we can't have on display all the time. Our collection is growing so that we can't display everything all the time or it would look like a yard sale. So we have to give things a rest, put them away, but we want to store them properly. We're excited we're going to have room to do that. We're also going to have a little bit more space for our office supplies. What started out as a quiet little room upstairs has become a bustling library, thanks to the many donations of lots of people, particularly Joseph Gaduri. We've got a wonderful collection of local history, Rhode Island history books that are on the weirdest topics, but they're interesting. So sometime we'll have to take a look at those together. I'd love to show you what we've got up there. But we're getting tight on space. We need space all over. For me, the word space is the biggest thing that we're getting out of this. Space to store things, space to work on things, and I'm really excited about this. A year from now, I am hoping to be premiering the permanent granite exhibit. That's going to take, well, maybe 2 years from now. It's going to take a while. We're going to be in touch with people in the museum industry on how to do this. The dream is to have one corner of the room look like a piece from the quarry, you know, with the big blocks and the. I told Ed he could build me a derrick. I wanted it all the way up to the ceiling and all that, so we could get a feel. We've got some artifacts from the quarry, the big chains, the detonator boxes, the big blocks and tackles, something to give people an idea of the size and how rugged the quarry was. Then in another corner, from the library loan, we have a stonecutter's banker, we have a stonecutter's toolbox, we have lots of tools. What we'd like to do is set up a place that looks like where a stonecutter would work. And we want to give people a feel for the stone shed and what was there. And then we have skazillion pictures. We would like to share with you pictures of the products of this industry, the people who made the products. There's just a wealth of stuff, so we want to be able to display that. So within 2 years, we hope to be premiering a display that will be available all the time that the museum is open, so that people can enjoy the Westerly granite. So John, that's what I see from an archivist's point of view. Space to store, space to work, space to exhibit.
Thank you, Linda. As you can tell, Linda is very enthusiastic about that, and we're very fortunate that she's really carrying on the work that I know that Ike Smith and Brenda Linton worked together for about 20 years trying to catalog a lot of the Smith granite quarry products. And now Linda and Brenda and John are on a campaign to try to photograph them all, but it's really a key role in preserving the history of the records, and so we're pleased that Linda is continuing in the Smith family tradition here with active participation. Ed Fazio. Ed wears a couple of hats. He's a docent. He's a past president of the docents. He's a member of the Board of Trustees, and currently he serves as the president of the Westerly Historical Society. Ed is really our facility man. He comes from a history of a facility manager within the aerospace industry, so when something needs to be fixed or whatever, Ed's the go-to guy. But today he's going to talk a little bit about what this addition means to the Westerly Historical Society. Ed?
Thank you, John. Well, it's really a great story. I hope you agree. This is such a wonderful story. And as the new kid on the block, 13 years ago next month, my wife and I moved to Westerly. We had to get away from that California sunshine where we'd been for 30 years, come back to our roots here in New England. But we were driving down Granite Street, and Carol, who wasn't driving, noticed that it said, there's a museum that's open on Sunday, and we like old house museums. So that following Sunday, we got in here, and there were these two fantastic sisters on duty as docents that day, Carolyn Longaluco and Mary Mitchell. Carolyn was, I think, the then president, the chair. No, she wasn't. Excuse me. She is a past president of the docent. Mary was the president of the docents. Well, they shanghaied us. We got a 2.5-hour tour and almost didn't leave. And by that time, we were signed up. So we got involved in this wonderful, wonderful place with a terrific group of volunteers. So that's kind of how that started. But to my subject, the Westerly Historical Society, a historical society without a home is at a severe disadvantage. And the Historical Society did not have a home. The Historical Society really didn't have funds to support a home. Because even if you're given a fine old house, most historical societies struggle very hard to maintain the facilities that they've been given, generally without an endowment to keep it going. So I got involved on the board. You know how these work. Somebody knows you from volunteering there, and I got shanghaied onto the board of the Historical Society. And it's from time to time, and I'm sure over the years, Dwight Brown is here. Dwight's been Historical Society board and archivist for a long time. You know, we thought it would be nice to have a home. Many people thought our home was here because the meetings were held here. The Historical Society was started 100 years ago last year, right over there in the museum house itself, in the dining room. Our meetings, our board meetings were held here. Programs were generally held in the library. Since then, programs have moved here. The archives, through the library generosity, the archives have been down in the basement of the library for many years. I don't know how long. How long, Dwight?
Long as I can remember.
There you go. Long enough, yes. But in the move-in and the reshuffling in the library, those archives moved into an area that didn't allow for any workspace for the archivists. Things had to be taken out of the cabinets, generally taken home to be worked on, or up into the library if you could get a few minutes of quiet. So it was great to have it, but it wasn't ideal. And as far as tourists, people who come in and want to know about our history, when we came to town, we said, "Where's the Historical Society?" We asked at the library. They said, "It's at the Babcock-Smith house." Well, of course, it wasn't, but that's generally the answer you would get. Well, now it's going to be. Now it's going to be here where half the people in town think it is anyway, and the archives are going to be here, the space is going to be here. Linda talked about the brand new large vault for the museum archives. There is an existing vault, sits right underneath that kitchen right over there, and it's the same square footage, and that vault will become the vault for the Historical Society, a vault, a fireproof, theft-proof, controlled vault, which we do not have now because our archives are in cabinets in a hallway in the basement of the museum. So the vault is going to be wonderful. Right outside the vault is a working space for the archivist to do research, other people to do research. And of course, we're going to have in that expanded facility a very nice reception area for the museum. And I'm hoping that we can energize the Historical Society membership to put in some volunteer hours as Historical Society volunteers to be here, so when folks come around, this museum could be open. I'd like to see this museum open every day of the week in the summertime. Right now, we managed to do 4 afternoons a week during July and August. So I think it's going to be a fantastic thing for the Historical Society. Certainly that cooperation benefits both organizations, and so we're really looking forward to it. So that's it, John.
Thanks, Ed. Meg Barkley has held, I think, every officer position in the docents. She's the current president. Her father was a trustee for over 30 years here at the museum from when it first was established in 1972. She provides exceptional leadership to the docent organization, and she's going to give us make a few comments about what this addition will mean to the docent organization. Meg?
Thank you, John. The word docent means teacher, and the Babcock-Smith House docents love sharing the history of our lovely colonial mansion and its former farm, and the role it played in the history of the town of Westerly. Dr. Joshua Babcock, who built the house, and his son, Colonel Henry Babcock, both played roles in the American Revolution. And a century later, the Smith Granite Company grew here on the farm during the Industrial Revolution. As John mentioned, 2 weeks ago, we completed our annual student tours. About 260 fifth graders got to tour the house and talk about its history. They also got to do a colonial craft, write with a quill pen, and weave on our little loom. But in addition to the teaching functions of the docent organization, we run a number of events such as candlelight dinners, teas, our veggie luncheon, and our annual Christmas bazaar. These, of course, are fundraisers for the museum, because like any old house, this property requires a great deal of loving maintenance. And we appreciate those of you who donate to this cause by becoming members of the Babcock-Smith House Museum. The addition is going to give us much needed space to enlarge our programs, things like the school tours, our veggie lunch, and our Christmas bazaar. And in celebration of the completion, which will happen this fall, we are enlarging our annual Christmas bazaar to what we are calling the holiday weekend. The weekend will involve activities on Friday night, Saturday, and Sunday afternoon, and it will incorporate the celebration of trees in the museum house, which has been so successful for the last 2 years. We're going to have musical events, carols, bell ringers, and we'll continue to do the Saturday morning Christmas bazaar in a slightly altered format. One of the things that we have done very successfully over the years is we have given over 40 candlelight dinners in the dining room of the museum house. In colonial garb, we serve a 6-course dinner on a table that is beautifully set, and we serve 12 people. And one of those dinners is a $600 value. Starting today, we are running a raffle for someone to win one of our beautiful candlelight dinners. The tickets are available today in the store, and we hope you will participate. We're going to sell tickets all through the tour season and right up to the holiday bazaar, when we will have the drawing for the raffle. So we hope you will buy one of our $10 or 3 for $25 tickets to win one of our glorious dinners. If you tour the house today or go into the house, you will see that the dining room table is set for one of our candlelight dinners, and it's really quite spectacular with its china, crystal, and silver. So we hope that you will come and support some of our docent activities, and we thank you very much.
Well, that gives you a little bit of an overview of what we hope to accomplish with this hole that's that's outside. And so, Terenzi Excavation has been very generous in terms of saying, well, we'll be glad to dig the hole and Sam and I have been good friends for a long time. But I said to Sam going back a few months, let me think about whether we want Terenzi to dig the hole. I was thinking, if we want to pay testament to Joshua Babcock, think about it, 1734. They probably dug the basement by hand, right? By hand. So I thought, these colonial guys, they were pretty thrifty. I said, I bet if I go to the basement of the house, I can find Joshua's shovel. I found it. Doesn't it look like this has been around since George Washington was 2? So I said, Sam, give me a chance. Okay, I'm going to try to dig the hole myself, like Joshua probably did back in 1734. So Tuesday morning I started. I was outside. And can you kill the the chandelier and the so on? We're going to go back to the slideshow. And so we started to dig the hole. Now it was a hot day, and when I started, I had black hair, okay? And it was so exhausting that it turned it this color. And so I got into it, but then I realized I would probably need some help from either some more people with shovels, or I need help with something like this, okay? And so this is Sam's excavator, and they really made the first dig into the land out front. And that actually is the first dig. You had to get that tree stump out of the way. And so, rather than me standing out there and shoveling a little dirt and you clapping, I thought I'd show you the actual first dig for the hole in the ground. And there it is. And the first task, obviously, was to get rid of that stump. The stump didn't really stand a chance. It didn't take too long before that stump was out of the ground and the excavator beat those roots and so on, and they just set that aside for another time. And then they started digging the hole. And we were worried about finding another Smith granite quarry, you know, right outside here, and we were worried about that. And we found a few stones that gave us cause for concern. But as we went forward, right about here, there was a nice little pile of pretty big stones. We don't know what they were from, but along the foundation, everything was pretty clear because, you know, that had been excavated 20 years ago and you had backfill, so that was like cutting through butter. There was no problem there, but right here in this kind of front corner, there was one that stretched the excavator and they had trouble picking it up, but he picked it up a couple of times, drop it on another big stone, and, you know, it breaks up and so on. And so by the end of Tuesday, this is what we had. Not only did we have the hole in the ground, we had the forms for the footings in place, and then just yesterday they poured the footings going forward. So we're excited that we've dug a hole in the ground. Our plan is that probably, weather permitting, by the end of next week, the forms will be, the foundation will be there, and could even be that Chirenzi will be back with a smaller excavator to, you know, push the, drop off some dirt and backfill the foundation, and then it'll be off to putting up the studs. Our plan is to still hopefully be done with construction by no later than the end of September. That way we can take the month of October, which is a great month to paint. Things are kind of dry at that time of year, so we'll have it all painted, both inside and out, by the end of October. And so at some point in 2015, we'll have a formal dedication. As Linda pointed out, we'll start working with the exhibit professionals. They did help us a few years ago in the Gertrude Smith room in the museum. Mystic Seaport was helpful in setting up that display, and so we may ask them for some of their input going forward. So once again, we're back to this photo. This is kind of the middle of the road. This is not what it looked like in '08 when we were considering it, and it's not quite what it's going to look like in 2014. This emergency stairway to the basement has been eliminated, and if you look in the hole on the side facing Cross Street, you'll see where the foundation kind of juts out a little bit. That's going to be an emergency exit from the basement. You've got to be 75 feet. You can't be any further away than 75 feet, I think, from the nearest exit. So we have the stairway and the bulkhead, but we need one closer to the front. And so there's going to be one right here. And we're going to be having a porch right along this front. But to save a little money, we haven't had an updated rendering of the final plan done because we're counting our pennies. I am pleased to say the original architect's estimate was somewhere, depending on what square footage figure you use, somewhere between $250,000 and $275,000. Then, of course, you've got to have a contingency. I don't think a construction project has ever happened that there weren't those little things that pop up. Like we thought maybe some ledge would pop up in the hole. Well, it didn't. Well, there'll always be some, so we put a little bit of a contingency, $25,000 for those little extras in there, and that's how we established our goal of $300,000. And as of a couple of weeks ago, we're at $303,790. So we've reached our goal, but as our treasurer is always reminding me, there's always something that you can spend money on. So if any of you haven't supported it yet and you'd like to, Maureen will be glad to take a pledge form for you this afternoon. But many of you already have, and we are extremely appreciative of the contributions that many of you in this room have made, starting with our trustees. Our trustees pledged 15% of our goal, $45,000. Okay, that in the fundraising world, that's a phenomenal statistic. When you take into account all of the docents as an organization and docents as individual members, we're over 25%, of the goal has been raised by what we'll call the family. Okay, those people that volunteer their time here at the museum. And I know many of you from the general public have been very generous. We really appreciate it. And 213 was our year. We went into 214 a little bit to wrap things up, but I want you to know how much we appreciate all the financial support and the emotional support that we've received going forward. So today is the start of our tours. This is our schedule. Saturdays from now until the end of October, 2 till 5. But in July and August, as Ed pointed out, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, 2 to 5, the house will be open for tours. Now, one of the new initiatives that we have this year is some of you may have seen the PBS video that was shown on PBS 2 months ago, Betty Jo? March. That was a product of Ocean State Video and Weather Vane Productions. I think I've got that right. Betty Jo is Weather Vane Productions. Jim Karpacek is Ocean State Video. They did that program that was on PBS. Well, we're going to be doing a video on the Westerly granite industry, and it's going to debut in November. But we have a 5-minute trailer, a sampling of what will be in this PBS video. And we're going to play it over and over again this afternoon, but we're going to end this PowerPoint program. We're going to put that video, the DVD is already loaded, and if you'd like to see it, we're going to show it to you now. Okay.
And if you want to keep track of the construction as it's progressing, our webpage, Babcock-Smith.org, on the home page has a link to the construction videos, and you can see what the latest progress is. So we want you all to keep in touch with what we're doing here and feel a part of it, because I know you've supported it.
Okay. It's on pause. I want to back on play. How come it won't play? Okay, we'll try that. Where's what?
How are you going to forget loop?
Well, we'll just, for this group, we'll show it after.
My father came from the old country at 16.
At one time, 400 men worked in New England quarries, and 400 more worked in the Smith quarries.
This was the industry in the area at the time. Westerly granite was the gold standard. There were several ethnic groups that worked here in the quarry industry. The Italians were here, the Irish were here.
The Irish lived across the river in Donegal, and of course the Italian people were up north. Scottish people were on the side of this thing here.
There was a boarding house on Tower Street near the water tower that the Finns tended to gather in and live in. It was like a melting pot community, and granite drew them here.
Working in the granite industry was a tough life, especially to work in the winter time when it was cold.
Power tools came in the mid-90s, 1890s. So before that, anything that was done was quarried by muscle power. Working in a quarry was unbelievably hard work. There was a real hierarchy in workers, you know. And it's hard to tell from the census records, they worked for the granite company. Well, this could mean they did anything from quarrying to blacksmithing to granite cutting to carving statues.
There were all kinds of people that were polishers, that were turners, as I said, circuitry machine up, hand cutting people. Leather cutters were a big thing way back before sandblasting, because all the leathers had to be done individually by hand by the men.
when you look at the 1900 census records of Westerly, 57% of the population had a direct connection to the granite industry.
It was a difficult profession, but it provided a living. We've documented monuments in 42 different states. It's in city squares, it's in cemeteries, it's on battlefields, it's just everywhere where people wanted to have a lasting monument to whatever it was they were commemorating.
Ike and Dick, were the really last true historians that touched the stone, that worked with the stone.
When you see a monument and you see the beauty of it, well, how did it get there?
Dick Camoli, he's really the last great carver of Westerly.
He's awesome. He is a man who loves granite.
This was a beauty. This should be actually in a museum. Too delicate. And that's what the people don't understand. You're subtracting. You can't add. When you're making a model, you can add clay and everything. And that's like a painting. You can paint over, but this you can't. I think granite and marble and sculpture are probably the hardest form of art to make one. So.
Once the Depression hit, and then of course World War II, it was kind of a double whammy for the granite industry in Westerly.
And I remember it was very sad when, back in like 56 that they had to sell it off. This was a huge industry in the town of Westerly. It is the engine of the economy for so many years here in Westerly. I think we need to preserve the history because like any history going back, we need to know the roots and where things came from.
It was a big part of Westerly, and I think it's important that people don't forget that.
That heritage is something that's shared by so many different ethnic groups here in Westerly, so many families, and to have it lost would be very sad. Everybody is proud of being a part of that granite story.
Trying to the lights. So that's our groundbreaking program. The full video, this is 5 to 6 minutes. It'll be 45 to 50 minutes long. We'll be making DVDs. We'll add it to our for sale collection in Joshua's store. We're timing it. November is a good time if people want gifts for the holidays and so on. And we'll have plenty. I guess we're going to have 1,000 DVDs, so they'll last us for a while. Thank you all for being with us today. The tours will be starting. I'm sure the docents are there ready to go. There's some hamburgers and hot dogs that they're cooking up on the grill. We hope you stay, and we're going to be running this loop a number of times, and so you can watch it. So thank you very much, and have a good afternoon and enjoyable Memorial Day weekend.